a salaried employee in the new tax regime stands to save up to 17,500 rupees in income tax.
Well, the union budget is out, and how is it going to be impacting your savings and investments? We will be understanding today with Kalpesh Ashar, who is a certified financial advisor. Kalpesh, welcome to Money Matters. And the tax slabs have been widened. The standard deductions have been raised from 50,000 to 75,000. Do you think these changes would be significant enough for the middle class taxpayers? Is it really going to matter much? And if yes, how much?
You know, the figures mentioned by you and the context is all relevant to the new tax regime only. This time, exactly the widening which they have done in the standard deduction, they've increased that from 50,000 to 75, is under new regime only. So earlier it was standard deduction under old regime and new regime at 50,000. Old regime still stays at 50,000. Yeah. Whereas new regime, whoever opts for it gets 75,000.
At this point of time, I really want to ask you, why only new tax regime? Is this a way of the government trying to encourage people towards the new tax regime?
Even in the new tax regime now, from the previous new tax slab rates, they have widened it. So earlier it was like up to 2.5, now they've taken up the no tax up to 3. Earlier it was 3 to 6, it was now 3 to 7, and so on and so forth. So even arithmetically, the new tax regime slabs have been increased, benefiting the taxpayer who is in the new tax regime, and they've worked out a figure that if you are in the new tax regime, you are better off by having 17,500 advantage.
Right.
So that's point number one. Second is, answering your question, is two things. One is, they have said that we want to simplify. Honestly speaking, I don't know how does it simplify, because you still have 5 tax slabs in that. That's point number one. Second point is very important, is that what they want is, in the old tax regime, we had the eligibilities, we had the deductions, we had ATC, we had ATD, ATG, and all sorts of things which were available. Right. Now, that was like a compulsion, that was like a mandate which was given, and people were doing it in their own way. Right. I think by having this simple tax paying thing, what the government is trying to say is that we are keeping more money in your hand. Right. It's up to the taxpayer to discreetly spend it or discreetly invest it. At your own way, you decide, you be the judge whether you want a good lifestyle, whether you want to have a better investment corpus, because we're giving you more money in your hand at no complications. You don't have to remember all those sections of the tax thing to do something with your money. So I think that could be the answer to what you're asking.
Right. Let's talk about one of the hottest topics of discussion which have been yesterday, which is taxes on the capital gains. Taxes on capital gains have been hiked, right, to 12.5%. Now, do you think this makes capital markets kind of, less lucrative? Do you think the investments are really going to kind of push back from here? What impact is it going to have?
Yeah, so the increase has not only been from 10 to 12.5, which is in the long term. It's from 15% to 20% in the short term. So let's have that very clear when we're talking about the new capital gain tax, what we're doing. Now in this, the simple equation, the duration is the same, yet we are talking about equity markets presently, that you have the long term period above 1 year and the short term below 1 year. And the good part here is, again, a little bit of parity has been restored, that everywhere now across all asset classes, the period has been set as 12 months and 24 months. Taxes, the percentage also is 12.5 and 20%. So that type of a parity is there for a little bit of a better understanding. Now, answering your question about will it affect capital markets, yesterday it was like a jerk. It was like a, we say the shock laga type of a thing, obviously, and it is natural. But when the fine print comes out, and we saw that the markets in fact went through a big turbulent ride yesterday, they collapsed by around 1.5%, and by the end of the markets it was stabilized at break even almost, which people would start reading the fine print and say, itna nahi badhaya, because the jump has been from 10 to 12.5 in the long term, which is almost a 25%, but 2.5% more. And in the short term, it's 15 to 20. Now, the reason for doing this, I I could attribute it to 2-3 things. One is that the markets, probably according to some people, I'm not a market expert or a stock expert, has heated up a lot, the equity markets. And it's evident that it's run up one way. Yeah. So it needed some type of sanity, some cooling off, and more focus on more long-term investments. So what they've done is that the short-term tax they've increased from 15 to 20%, and the long-term also has been increased. Probably that would now set some people thinking that abhi aa gaya hai. But from a market perspective, from a investor perspective, and from an advisor perspective, I think that the fundamentals of the market, fundamentals of the country, our GDP, our growth is still very, very rock solid. And if that is going to happen, because in the first part of the budget, if you see, it seemed very, very good, and it is very good. The blueprint which they have laid out for the first 5 years, 10 years, and their way forward, the employment programs, what they've laid out, the focus on infrastructure, defense, mining, manufacturing, everything, lays out a proper plan that they want the youth to work. Now, what happens when people start working? It gives more income in the hand, and that income has to be dispersed somewhere. Now, if that comes into the capital markets, we cannot imagine where our capital markets would go. And if it's well regulated, if the taxations are in place, people are willing to honestly pay taxes, I think this really doesn't matter. And even we know globally that foreigners are now, itching to come to the Indian markets. So this could be, I'm not saying this is the end of the taxation, because if they have given a hint that they are putting 12.5 now, probably what they had in their mind, I'm not reading their mind, was 15%. But because the next budget is in February again, we could be looking at 12.5 increase to 15%.
To 15%, right.
But as long as I think we are earning from the capital markets in the right way and without speculation, because that is where, the youth has been the first time investors. It's a sorry state of affairs, but the first time investor today, instead of doing a 1,000 rupees SIP, is putting his money into FNO, which is very, very dangerous.
Right. Since you have mentioned FNO, well, this has been quite a disappointment for the people who actually invest in FNO because the taxes have been hiked. What do you think is the reason behind this? Where does the government want the investors and the traders to head to? Are they discouraging F&O trading because probably it's speculative and kind of which comes under the nature of gambling?
It does, absolutely. I think half the answer is in your question itself. They want to curb it. They want people to channelize their investments into more, I think, solid long-term type of a thing, not the get-rich-quick type of solutions which FNO offers. And people have made money. I'm not saying they have not made money, but many, many have lost. And those people who have lost have been so disillusioned, or their lives have been rattled, and they'll never come back to the capital markets because they have been misguided or misinformed about what this particular product can do. This requires education, and this requires proper hand holding. This requires proper advice. And everywhere today we see, I think it's got its branches in. Today we have the influencers, we have YouTubes galore with people just wanting to make a fast buck and get into the markets. So all these things were in the eyes of the government, the SEBI and everything. And I think this is a first step which they have taken, that the youth or anybody should not be into this. If you want to do it, make it an informed decision. I'm not saying that this is not a branch and it can be taken out, but people treading into it should do it with utmost caution. Because the right way to do it is to grow long-term wealth, to ideally go through the mutual fund way, because the mutual fund industry has really, really blossomed. And according to me, we are still at the tip of the iceberg in what mutual fund can do today. Today we are at almost a 21,000 crore monthly SIP. Now we can imagine where will this lead to. So it's a whole process, it's got its repercussions, and it's got its roots somewhere else.
Right. Let's talk about the real estate sector and the property. The indexation benefits have been removed completely. How do you think it's going to impact the real estate sector? Because is it going to really discourage people, people involved into this segment?
Yeah, that was one more thing, like the capital gains which just came out of the blue. And indexation per se, the word has been probably removed from the budget vocabulary.
Which actually accounts inflation.
Which accounts inflation. That's what indexation is supposed to be, and it was playing a huge role over the years about calculating the expense which would have incurred year on year. That's how the inflation is measured, and offsetting it against the sale when you actually make it. So many people, in fact, had their indexation calculated, but it was actually coming into a loss. And when they sold a property, so when they sold a property, forget paying taxes, they could actually offset that loss against a profit. And other thing is that the indexation which was available, which has been removed now, what the government has done is they've reduced the tax on the real estate part from 20% also in the long term to 12.5%.
So is it really going to offset the indexation?
It depends on case to case basis, but it is surely make now people wanting to invest in real estate. I'm using the word invest and not stay in a property or real estate. Think twice, because what is going to happen is that case to case basis, we don't have the maths to do it right now, that many people who would have benefited from indexation now by coming out of that property calculation would probably be not better off paying this 12.5% tax itself. But for the future, it's going to set minds ticking. That can we use real estate as a get in, get out type of an asset class, or we just buy it for our own consumption or our own staying purpose. So that is a very thing. Other one good thing which they have done, which I would like to clear, is that there was clarity that this thing applies only from 2001. Before 2001, whoever has bought a property and wishes to dispose it off or sell it, still the indexation benefit is available. So that's like a grandfathering type of an effect which is there. So this is surely presently not a good sign for the real estate, but the government knows that people who were investing in real estate just for the heck of it, and a lot of wrong money was also being channelized there and keeping it. Hence, they were not letting the real end users benefit by having an opportunity to buy that property. So now they have classified real estate under that by removing the indexation part of it.
Absolutely. Something very remarkable that was announced yesterday was NPS Vatsalya, which is a pension scheme for the minors where even parents can contribute while the children are below the 18 years of, just to educate our viewers, how is it going to be different than the normal pension schemes, and what are the potential, of returns? So
honestly speaking, the fine print is yet to come out. And we'll get to know about, who makes a contribution, who gets a benefit, and what is the percentage and all. But conceptually, this is a brilliant thought. Because if we were always associating the word right now pension with retirement, now we are in fact associating the word pension or contribution right from the birth or the first year of a child till he attains major status. So what the parents can in fact do is that they can start contributing for the child
right from that very
right from the beginning till he's 18 as a minor, and the moment he becomes a major, so they've kept 18 as the threshold there, that thing continues for him till retirement. So it's like a lifelong type of an contribution, first which is done by the parents and hopefully then by the individual or the person himself. So it's a brilliant thought which has been evolved, and it takes care from the saving concept from day one. So the fine print is yet to come out. We do not know what is the potential returns, is it taxable, how is it, what is it. But NPS Vatsalya is, I think, aptly named, So this should go a big way in again channelizing savings the right way.
As we wrap up, Kalpesh, this episode, I really want to understand from you, what is your overall view of this Union Budget 2024-25 when it comes to the middle class? How can, what they should really look forward to?
So two parts on that. First is from the macro level. It's a brilliant blueprint which has been laid out in terms of laying the roots for what the country should be headed towards. Like we are heading towards the third largest economy. I think all the lights have been on for that. With regards to the micro part, that is a macro part. Now we're talking about the citizens part. Still, I think the problem is that the tax system is not simplified. It still requires easy understanding of the individual to come forward and pay the taxes.
The irony is, yesterday in the budget speech, a finance minister, Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman, actually mentioned that the goal of this government is actually to simplify taxes.
But that's the irony, right? That's the only word you can use, because it is not simplifying taxes at all. I think the normal, average, honest taxpayer is not against paying taxes. He just wants simplicity, honesty in paying taxes. He just wants to pay it, get done with, and be on the right side of the law. Yet, there is so much to understand. There is so much of fine print. I think it's been from yesterday to today. I'm still sure that we are missing out certain points which have not been clear, and they will be cleared later on.
Yeah.
So that is not clarity or simplicity at all. That's point number one. Point number two is, I think this was not the right time to tweak the capital gain for whatever it stands for and whatever statements we make.
Do you think it can be rolled back after the discussion?
No, I think it's not that huge that it will be rolled back or it will have an impact. But the point was, it was not really called for to touch it at this point of time. And neither is it that drastic as well today. But I think it hurt the sentiment of many people who were so happy doing what they were, in the sense, in the right way. Again, I'm not talking about the FNO part. That is a measure, I think, which still should be enforced more to drive away the speculative people. But the point is that this was not called for. Obviously, the third part is that if the government is going to, which I said earlier, if the government is going to put us all on the right path, give us right employment, give the right capital market structure, then I think we as citizens should have no problem paying the taxes which the government will spend. The condition is government should spend. Our lifestyle should be better, our investments should be better, then we do not mind paying taxes at all.
And the government should spend it wisely. This is what...
Wise is an understatement. It always would want to spend wisely.
Absolutely, which kind of differs from person to person. So thank you so much, Kalpesh. It was amazing having you on the show, and I'm sure it is going to help a lot of taxpayers out there. And you wonderful people, for more such insightful videos, stay tuned to Money Matters on Midday.
Subscribe to Midday India. Get direct notifications on all our videos by clicking on the bell icon.